Now let's continue talking about groups and the various characteristics about these groups and some things you need to understand on the exam. And in this video we're going to talk about group types and scopes so that you will understand or help you understand what different type of group to use and when to use these groups and what benefits you gain from them. Now this can be confusing, so what you need to do is go through this video. It's all going to be text based. We're going to just go over the different types of groups and how they behave. And then if you'll go back and look at the video AD Group Basics where I had that animation, then start to think how you can fit this in. Then get you a piece of paper and draw you some little triangles for domains and just play with some of these ideas about using these groups to provide access to things. But this is something they will test you about on the exam. Guaranteed you will get questions. So make sure you understand the difference between the various group types and scopes and so forth. So let's go through those. Now there are really two basic types of groups. There is a security group, and that security group is a security principal, meaning that we can use that to provide access to a resource. And bottom line is that's what we're going to do with these. We are going to use security groups to group our users together to manage security, to manage access to resources on our network. And then there are distribution groups, and you don't see these very much, but you will see them. Some administrators love them. You can't apply any kind of security to these groups. You can't use them to control access to resources. You just simply use them to congregate users for email applications. And so what can happen then is the email user, say we create a distribution group called sales and we put everybody in sales in it, then if we send an email to the sales distribution group, then everybody in that group gets a copy of the email. Now let me say this real quickly and watch for this on the exam. I can email enable a security group. So if I have a security group called sales, I can go in and give it an email address, and then you can still send email to sales, and at that point everybody will get it, but I'm using the security group as a distribution group. The problem with that is that it gets very tempting to put people in the security group that don't really need the access, but just so they can get the emails. So you'll have to decide in your particular environment which way you want to go with that. So that's the two types. Now let's talk about the group scope, and this is really talking about security groups. You will read or hear about global groups, domain local groups, and universal groups. Now let's talk about these different groups and how you can use those. Now the group scope, whether it's local, global, domain local, universal, determines three characteristics. Number one, replication. If I use a global group, where do I create this group and where does it get replicated? Who all can see it? The next thing is membership. Who can be members of this group? And then availability. Where can I use this group? Let's just jump right in. First up, global groups. The Microsoft recommendation is that you use a global group to segregate or separate or group, however you want to think of it, your users, your computers based on the business roles. Good example. You hire me, my name's Mark, you put me in sales, so I go into the sales global group. I also have to do a little bit of accounting, so you put me in the accounting global group. I also from time to time work with marketing people, so you put me in the marketing global group. Okay, so I'm members of all those groups. Now replication, that global group automatically gets replicated to all domain controllers in the domain, meaning all the other domain controllers can see it and use it. Now the membership, who can I put into a global group? I can put users and computers, and I can put other global groups from the same domain only. So you may want to draw you out a little triangle and play with this. You can have global groups out there, and I can nest global groups inside each other. Availability. Any member of all the domains in the forest can see these global groups and can use them. They can also be a member. You can put them inside any domain local group or universal group in the forest or any other trusting domain. So you can put these inside domain local groups. And again, if you go back to the AD Group Basics video, you can see how we're putting these global groups inside the domain local groups. And I just called them a local group there to make it easy to understand. Next up, Domain local groups. Now let me help you with some confusion here. You will see domain local groups and local groups. A local group is created on that computer and only lives on that computer. A domain local group is created on a computer but is seen throughout the domain. So you're better off to use domain local groups. If you grew up on Windows 2000 and all that and you're used to local groups, just begin to use domain local groups and you will be fine. Remember AGLP in the AD Group Basics video. Now just think AGDLP. So these, we're going to use a local group to manage permissions. Now on replication, it gets sent to all domain controllers in the domain who can be members, users, computers, and global groups from any domain in the forest. Then universal groups from any domain in the forest, and these can be a member of other domain local groups or even just a basic old local group. So we can nest those things. Now the last one, universal groups. These can manage permissions, and these things are strong because we can go across multiple domains. These are replicated to all domain controllers in the forest, not just the domain. That means they're included in the global catalog, so go watch the videos on global catalog. Users, global groups, and other universal groups from any domain in the forest can be members, and universal groups from any domain in the forest. Now that's a little bit of a repeat there, but understand you're pretty much unlimited with what you can put into this group. Availability. This can be a member of a universal or a domain local group anywhere in the forest. Now universal groups are used whenever you're trying to grant resources to permissions across multiple domains. Let that be the acid test on the exam. Am I trying to cross multiple domains? Then universal groups would be great. Go over this information, go out and read a little bit about it on Microsoft's site and make sure all this stuff makes sense to you. Draw yourself some diagrams and you will be able to just prance through these questions on the exam just by drawing a few simple diagrams as they ask the question.